All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Johns Hopkins School of Education Mind, Brain, and Teaching virtual webinar. My name is Sion John, and I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions at the Johns Hopkins School of Education. Also presenting today, we have Professor and Program Lead, Dr. Ranjini Janbul, and Vice Dean of Academic Affairs and founder of the program, Dr. Marielle Hardiman. Before we get started, I would like to cover a few housekeeping topics. First, today's webinar is being recorded. We will be able to share a link with you after the event is complete. We welcome you to revisit the content yourself and share it with your colleagues or network. Second, please take this moment to see if your mic is on mute. We ask everyone to have their mic on mute during the presentation. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Please type your question in the chat box at the end of the presentation, and I will read the question out loud for everyone to hear. First, I would like to share the agenda for today's virtual webinar. We will kick off the presentation sharing an overview of the Johns Hopkins School of Education. Then Dr. Ranjini Janbul and Dr. Marielle Hardiman will introduce themselves and discuss an overview and details of the Mind, Brain, and Teaching program. Lastly, I'll wrap it up with the missions requirements and leave the floor open for the questions at the end. Quick facts about the Johns Hopkins School of Education. We are one of 9 schools at Johns Hopkins University. We began offering college courses for teachers in 1909 and then became our own school in 2007. And we celebrated our 10th year anniversary last year. For school enrollment, we have approximately 2,600 students. All programs leading to licensure is approved by the Maryland State Department of Education. For campus locations, we have campuses in Baltimore, Maryland, Columbia, Maryland, and offer classes online. We are very proud to share that the Johns Hopkins School of Education is consistently ranked one of the top schools in education by the U.S. News and World Report. At this time, I am going to hand the floor over to Dr. Janbul and Dr. Hardiman. They are going to introduce themselves and present on the Mind, Brain, and Teaching program.
Good afternoon. This is Ranjini Janbul, and I am the faculty lead for the Mind, Brain, and Teaching program. I've been working here at Johns Hopkins University for 6.5 years now, and my path has taken me on a very interdisciplinary journey, which is very appropriate for the Mind, Brain, and Teaching field because it is a very interdisciplinary field. So I started out with an undergraduate degree in biology and music, and I taught music for a while in St. Louis City, where I integrated non-arts content into my music classes as a teacher. I worked with teachers in Uganda as a U.S. Peace Corps volunteer and did strategic planning and thematic curriculum teacher training. And that led me to want to go into graduate school in education leadership and focus on teacher efficacy beliefs and cultural competence. And through that experience and through seeing the impact that working in higher education can have, working hand in hand with teachers who are going through graduate school, I was inspired to go into research and teaching at higher education. And I got to meet Dr. Marielle Hardiman and join her research lab as a postdoctoral research fellow for 2 years, where we got to work on this exciting arts integration project where we were examining whether or not teaching science through the arts would impact memory for science greater than just teaching science through traditional curriculum. And we also investigated during that period the effects of learning about the brain-targeted teaching model on teacher efficacy beliefs through professional development programs. So it's been a wonderful journey. I love working here at Hopkins. I love working with Dr. Hardiman, and I really love working with mind brain teaching students because you all bring so much to us. It's a reciprocal process of learning as we go through this certificate and the other programs that we have at the School of Ed. So I'm excited to be talking to you here today. And I'll hand the mic over to Dr. Hardiman.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to our webinar. So you see my profile there. I certainly am not going to read it for you. It has been a pleasure for me to have Dr. Jomboul as part of the team here in the NeuroEd initiative and in teaching, and now stepping in my place as the faculty lead in the Mind, Brain, and Teaching program. I am the Vice Dean of Academic Affairs, and I've been interim dean twice here in my tenure at Hopkins. In the interim dean role, and here in the Vice Dean role, I'm able to draw on my past skills in leadership. You can see from my bio that I did spend a lot of time in the K-12 world and was principal of several schools, and in my last school was where the brain-targeted teaching model that you'll hear a little bit more about was created. And my school, which was a very large one, 1,500 kids, we became fully arts integrated. So then coming to Hopkins, I was able to take my passion for teachers understanding how the brain thinks and learns, and how that can inform practice into the university level. We created the Neuroeducation Initiative to bring to educators research from the learning sciences, and then created the academic programs, Mind, Brain, and Teaching, that you're going to hear a little bit more about. I was also really excited that I could spend some time researching not just only that, but also another passion, and that is how the arts can inform teaching and learning. So we want to welcome you, and let's get on with the webinar.
All right. Well, why would you pursue a mind, brain, and teaching education? Do you want to be an advanced practitioner? Do you want to be a leader in your field? Do you want to go into policy or be an education consultant? Or was this just part of your lifelong learning goal? We asked this question at the beginning so that you start considering what you want to get out of a mind, brain teaching certificate program. And when you come into our program, it's we ask you to think about a long-term project or a capstone project so that you can build in research throughout the courses that would help you reach your goal and personalize your learning experience as you go through the courses. So these are some of the reasons that people bring with them when they enter the mind, brain teaching space. And I just challenge you and encourage you to think about why, what you want to get out of this and why you want to pursue a mind, brain teaching education. All right, next slide. So we believe that the mind, brain teaching program is ideal for just about everyone. It's great for pre-K through 16 educators, counselors, school leaders. People in higher education are coming and wanting to learn about how the brain thinks and learns, and how do we design learning experiences for adults and upper adolescents. We have organizational leaders coming to learn about this content so that they can better understand human development and how to design organizations so that it's optimal for adult development in their career growth, from a neophyte in a career to an expert in their career. We have educational consultants that are coming to hone their craft. We have parents coming here and homeschool educators. It's perfect for face-to-face education and online education. Right now, we're only offering it in the online space, but mind, brain teaching can really go anywhere. All right. Let's see, Mariel, I think I'm handing this back.
Yes, so this is Mariel Hardiman again. You'll hear Ranji and I back and forth talking through this presentation. So The Mind, Brain, and Teaching was developed as a 15-credit graduate certificate here at Johns Hopkins. It does give you the award of certificate that is a stamp on your transcript. The whole point of the certificate is, as I mentioned earlier, to bring to educators research from the learning sciences to inform teaching and learning, and to really help educators at any level. And you saw from the last slide, Dr. John Bull talking about the diversity of our students. But it really helps understand the learner, which is really important in education. We talk a whole lot about curriculum and we talk about assessment, but we don't spend enough time really talking about how children learn. And so this certificate is meant to do that. It brings to educators research from multiple fields. You can see that in the second bullet here. You know, we have a reputation in education for not using our own research in educational practice, and that may be so. But one thing that's even worse is that we're not exposed to research from the learning sciences in typical teacher preparation programs that really help us understand how children think and learn. And we hear from many of our students in our program and those who we talk to in professional development. What we learn from them is, gee, I wish I had known this information when I first became a teacher. Why isn't this part of regular teacher preparation? So we're happy to be bringing it to you now. It is offered in a fully online format. And the time frame for the course completion is 2 academic years plus 1 semester. And we do offer typically a cohort model where the courses are offered in a sequential order. However, we are willing to make some adjustments to that. Sometimes we do have students who would like to compress that. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes, but we are willing to compress the structure for those of you who would like to complete it sooner. Okay, so what are the advantages of the program? One of the things that we like to say is that we start out with a model, brain-targeted teaching model that I mentioned earlier, that bridges research to instructional practice, and it does so in a cohesive framework so that our students see from the very first course that research can inform practice, and we show you how. So these are broad brush strokes that we talk about in the brain-targeted teaching model. For example, how emotions affect learning, how attention is mediated through the physical learning environment, how big picture thinking is really important at all levels, how children master information and then apply it, and then how we evaluate learning. And those are the 6 targets of the model. And all of those targets are supported by research from education, but also from the learning sciences. So we think the strength of the model and of the program is that you start out right away reading the research, but considering from the beginning how it informs instruction. We also have learned that this model has been adopted in lots of different organizational contexts. It's just been really wonderful for me and for Dr. Jumble and the rest of our faculty to see our students who are working with young children adopt the model to their children. And then on the complete opposite side, those who are working in higher education and with adult learners and how they've adopted the model there. I just, in fact, did a presentation for Johns Hopkins faculty from all across the university in how the brain-targeted teaching model can inform university teaching as well. So we like to say that this is a cross-curricular model that can be used in all professional contexts. So what you see there are the 2 books. The first book was written in '03, and that kind of introduced connecting brain research with teaching. And the second book is the one with the circles. Blue one, the Brain Targeted Teaching Model for 21st Century Schools, was written about 12 years later, and I have to say the model itself did not change at all, but the research that supported the model just grew exponentially. So the sizes of these two books differ because there's so much more research now that supports the model. And as our students in our master's and doctoral programs study the model, that research continues to expand. So this curriculum structure that you see now is the typical structure that we've been using for our students. Students start out, our program starts in the fall. So for this upcoming academic year, the first course, Explorations in Mind, Brain, and Teaching, is where the brain-targeted teaching is the central point of it. We start out by giving you sort of a broad brush of what the learning sciences are to inform teaching and learning. We look at brain structure and function, and then we dive into each of the targets in the model and end up with a project that uses the model in the student's own context. After that, the spring course, Fundamentals of Cognitive Development, dives more deeply into the research. The next course, 2020 summer, is Neurobiology of Learning Differences. So in the previous course, you've learned about normal cognitive development. And then in this course, we're looking at abnormal development, students who display learning differences, autism, learning disabilities, executive function difficulties, etc. The next course in the fall of 2020 is Cognitive Processes of Literacy and Numeracy. There is a growing body of research from basic science as well as cognitive science in how literacy is processed in the brain and numeracy as well, and then what that means in terms of teaching and learning literacy and numeracy skills. And the last special topics in brain science is meant to be a capstone of sorts. It will touch on various topics such as creativity in learning, other topics that you have been introduced to, but you'll delve in deeper in this course. And then, it ends with a kind of a capstone where the students select something, a topic that they're interested in, and explore it more deeply. As I mentioned before, this is a structure that is our traditional structure. Although more and more students would like to take 6 credits at a time, and you'll find out that that does trigger financial aid. And so for students who have the time and would like to double up the courses, the fall course and the 2 fall courses would come together, Explorations in Cognitive Processes. The spring course, Fundamentals of Cognitive Development, would pair with Neurobiology of Learning Differences. And then we'd flip that. The last course would always be Special Topics in Brain Sciences. So I hope that gives you an idea. If anyone is interested in applying and compressing that, as I just mentioned, we would ask you to let us know, and we'll make sure that you have the email for Kiana Napper, who is our wonderful program administrator supporting Dr. Jambul and all the other faculty in the program. So now I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Jambul.
All right. Well, this course, this certificate is delivered completely online. It's on using the Blackboard platform, and generally it's an asynchronous course. It is in a session model, so there are typically 6 to 8 sessions over the course of 12 weeks, or 12 to 13 weeks for each course. We have video lectures, we have interactives, we have discussions and projects, and we also do have some optional, not compulsory synchronous sessions. Your instructors are available via email. I regularly give people my cell phone number so that you can text me for questions and phone calls, of course. I think one of the things that I love about working with my colleagues here at Hopkins in the Mind Brain Teaching Program is that we pride ourselves on being accessible and on developing a strong rapport with our students. And yeah, so that's our online curriculum delivery. And so we use, like what you're using right now, we use Zoom for our live synchronous sessions, which has opened up a new world for us in the online platform space. I think if you've taken an online course before, you may have used Adobe Connect, where you're just listening along, but in the Zoom space, you can look at one another, kind of like the Brady Bunch intro song, so that you can see all the faces, you can read emotions, you can see where people are maybe not totally jiving with what you're saying, or they are jiving, so we can react in real time to that during our synchronous sessions as well, which are usually 2 to 3 synchronous sessions per semester, depending on the desire of the students. All right. Next slide. Yeah, the outcomes of this graduate degree is that we expect for you all to come out of here being able to translate research into your professional practice, and that we provide for you some scaffolding to be able to digest and parse the research in the research literature, and that we want you to deeply dive into some literature that's relevant for your personal practice, so that you have some personalized learning that happens throughout this course that you choose, and that you're producing in most of the courses projects that are immediately translating your learning to your practice. We don't have tons of projects in here that are just compulsory, standard, boring projects. We try to scaffold our work so that it's meaningful for your learning and also meaningful for your practice. And then at the end of this, we like to say that you come out as neuroeducators, and that you tend to serve as this bridge person between mind, brain, and teaching for your colleagues, and you have tools that you can offer your community. And our students have come back and told us that they serve as point people for knowledge from the learning sciences. Not that they know everything, but they have a set of skills for which they can rely upon to find the knowledge, to find information and resources. So our students generally come out with very positive things to say. And I'll turn to the next slide, and you can see that overwhelmingly our students have very positive feelings about their journey through the Mind, Brain, and Teaching certificate program. And we also have a doctoral program as well. You can see, I'm not going to read these comments to you, but you can see that students have a great journey. And not only is it just that they've learned something and they have a few courses under the belt, but it's a shift in identity from whatever you were when you came in to now. You've got this neuroeducation perspective and a mind, brain, body, social context perspective. So it's a beautiful journey that we get to observe and walk with you on. And the next slide. So I also would encourage you, just like I said before, we have a doctoral program, but you can also take the Mind, Brain, Teaching certificate and integrate those courses into a master's of education degree. You could integrate the Mind, Brain, Teaching courses with the gifted education courses or urban education courses. Any of these, we have multiple certificates. You don't have to take 2 specific certificates, but you could specialize in the Mind, Brain, and Teaching area, and you could pick and choose from some of the other certificates, or you could specialize in a couple of different areas and focus so that you come out with even more. One of the things that I think is amazing about Johns Hopkins School of Education is that you can design a master's degree that suits your needs, which is not something that's very common in other universities or other schools of education. And I think this is one of the very innovative ways to meet the needs of teachers where where teachers are, where professionals are, so that we can really provide you with information and knowledge to grow your career and grow your practice. Yeah. All right, back to Sion.
All right, thank you. So now we're going to continue by going over the application requirements. So applicants must submit a completed application, which can be found on our website, and there is an $80 application fee when you submit your application. Priority consideration date is April 1st. Applications accepted after this date is dependent on space availability. After you submit your application, you will receive a confirmation email with instructions on how to upload your supporting documents. Be sure to provide an accurate email address and that you check it regularly, as this is how we will communicate with you throughout the application process. You will also need a current resume or CV, and you should submit 2 letters of recommendation. Next, 500-word essay must be uploaded discussing the reasons you wish to pursue a degree at the Johns Hopkins School of Education. In addition, discussing any strengths and weaknesses in your academic background, as well as any additional comments that will assist in evaluating your application. We will need all transcripts, including institution you may have taken courses but did not receive a degree. And lastly, we also require an academic writing sample. This writing sample should be between 750 to 1,500 words, and papers that are analytical or research focused are strongly preferred. If you do not have an appropriate sample of an academic writing to submit, as an alternative, you may instead write a brief essay in response to the following prompt. Consider an educational setting of your choice. What kind of questions about teaching and learning do you think researchers from the neuro and cognitive sciences could help address? We do not expect you to do any considerable research to respond to this prompt, and we do not expect that applicants will have background knowledge from the neuro and cognitive sciences. Rather, we simply want you to analyze an educational setting you are familiar with and formulate relevant questions about teaching practices and the learning process. Please refer to our website for additional information. There are a few additional steps you need to take in order to complete the application process. If you are an international student, you must submit a TOEFL or IELTS score. If your degree was completed outside of the US, you will need to complete a course-by-course evaluation. Additional information can be found on our website. Also note that we do not offer I-20 for part-time or online programs. Please contact the Office of International Services if you have any questions. Tuition and fees. The current tuition for the School of Education for online courses is $840 per credit. We anticipate the tuition for the 2019-2020 academic school year will stay the same, $840 per credit for online courses. The total cost of the program will be $13,780, which includes the base tuition, the $840 per credit for 15 credits, $80 application fee, the technology fee, and the 5 semesters of registration fees. Please note that this excludes textbook or course material fees, and this program is eligible for financial aid. We encourage you to view our tuition and fees page on our website for the most up-to-date information about tuition and fees, so that you can understand the complete picture of the costs associated with becoming a student here at the Johns Hopkins School of Education. If you're interested in applying for financial aid, we strongly encourage you to apply for financial aid when you start your application. Please note the priority financial application deadline listed on this slide. Please visit our website if you have any questions relating to financial aid. You'll find contact information for the Office of Financial Aid and details of loans and scholarships that are available. If you have any questions relating to your application, please feel free to email or call us. Also, this is the address you would use to send any supporting materials such as transcripts. In addition, here a point of contact for admission. We have Jade Marjoram email address. We also have Kiana Napper. She's a program coordinator. If any questions relating to program, please contact Kiana, and also Dr. John Bull, and I have her, Dr. John Bull's email address on here as well. Thank you for attending the Johns Hopkins School of Education Mind, Brain, and Teaching virtual webinar. At this time, Dr. John Bull and Dr. Hardiman and I would like to open up the floor for questions. So again, please chat in your questions. Please type your questions in the chat box, and I'll be sure to read the questions out loud. Okay, so Dr. John Bull and Dr. Hardiman, looks like we have a program-related question. The first one is, could you please provide some examples or highlights of some of the research projects that Mind, Brain, and Teaching students work on in the capstone course? Any special topics?
Absolutely. I'm going to start, and then I'm going to let Dr. John Bull jump in. So what we look for is for students to focus on an area that they have interest, and then maybe an intervention. So one might be someone is interested in self-regulation and understands that many students come to school with problems in self-regulation. So they may come up with a strategy that they'd like to test in maybe some kind of an action research in their classroom, and it may be something like mindfulness training. So they may try a mindfulness training strategy and, collect some data about that. So they would be looking at the research in mindfulness and then the research in self-regulation. Others have done professional development programs that they would implement in their school or their district. And those could be on a variety of topics. I know that a lot of our students are also interested in how this research affects teacher attitudes and beliefs. And so I'm going to turn this over to Dr. John Bull. As she told you, she her doctorate and her interests are in teacher efficacy beliefs, and we've done some research around how the brain-targeted teaching model has improved that. So Dr. John Bull, maybe you can talk a little bit about special topics and some of the projects.
Sure. Just like Dr. Hardiman talked about, a lot of our students take pieces of the coursework back to their communities of practice and share it in a professional development way. A number of people have shared the Brain Targeted Teaching Framework book with their professional practices, and they have investigated teacher efficacy beliefs. Let me just tell you a little bit about that so that you know, so that you have an anchor there. So teacher efficacy, amongst all of the factors that impact student outcomes, teacher efficacy beliefs are the most predictive factor of student outcomes, because these beliefs predict teacher behaviors and teacher practices, which then impact student practices and student learning outcomes and their own student self-efficacy beliefs. Teacher efficacy is broken into two different constructs. You have personal teaching efficacy and we have general teaching efficacy. Personal teaching efficacy is the beliefs and about my own skills and competencies to teach. So for example, I may think that I am an amazing mathematics instructor. I've got all kinds of tricks in my bag and strategies to help students learn mathematics. General teaching efficacy is a different construct. It is general, right? So it's the expectation that teaching is going to impact student learning regardless of who does the teaching. But both of these beliefs are very context specific. So you may feel very strongly about your own personal beliefs, and then you walk into a classroom and you look at the group in front of you and you think to yourself, oh, no matter who walks in here, the teaching is going to result in student learning and great achievement. Or you may think the opposite, right? So no matter who walks in this classroom, the teaching is not really going to make a difference. So one of the things that we've done is we've studied those belief structures and those beliefs before and after teachers have learned about the brain-targeted teaching framework. And what we found is that learning about how the brain thinks and learns, and brain structure and function, and neuromyths, what is still true about the brain, what is not true about the brain and learning anymore, and learning about a digestible structure like the brain-targeted teaching framework, through which people can understand how to apply the learning sciences research to practice. Teachers feel empowered. They feel stronger about their skills to help students remember information. They feel stronger about their abilities to manage classrooms once they know more about the emotional climate and how to recruit students' attention. They feel more hopeful about students in general and context specific. So we found that teachers' personal and general teaching efficacy beliefs both increase once they learn the brain-targeted teaching framework, which is a very exciting outcome for us, because in the teacher efficacy research world, that's a pretty hard result to find, where you can improve, where teachers' beliefs grow and develop in that way through a professional development in both areas. So what we found is that a number of our students also want to investigate the self-efficacy beliefs of their contexts by sharing neuroeducation, learning sciences information and research with their contexts. So not just teacher efficacy, but we've had one of our students developed training for her parents. And so she measured parent self-efficacy and looked up some of those things. We also have had students investigate issues of memory, do a literature review on memory, and then have also, like we've suggested, investigated arts integration in a non-arts content, and looked at the differences of memory for particular content after using arts integration. And generally, we find that students across the board, through 0 to adult, enjoy learning through arts integrated medium, and learning through multiple modalities, which you learn in this certificate. So those are just a few. We've also had somebody who was looking at social emotional learning, and for her application project, she tested out, her school was doing PBIS interventions, where it's kind of a prescriptive model of behavior management. And so she tested the difference between using a PBIS model versus responsive classroom. One of the things about the brain-targeted teaching model is that it is not, it's program agnostic. So we don't say that one is right and one is wrong. It's a framework through which you can examine multiple different programs to see whether or not the learning sciences support a program for your context. And we put the information in your hands so that you can evaluate that for you and your context, because you're the ones that have practice-based expertise in whatever your field it is and whatever context you come from. So we arm you with the knowledge so that you can go back and diagnose your particular context and see how to help your colleagues, your students, whomever you're interacting with, your spheres of influence, continue to grow and develop through this knowledge. Okay, I've talked a lot about that. So I'll hand it back to Sion. It looks like there's other questions.
Yes, we do have a lot of questions, a lot of good questions. So the next one from John, again, program related. What are some research problems your lab is currently fascinated about?
I'm going to jump in here and try to be quick with you. Dr. Jumble just gave you an example of the work that we've done. We have conducted 2 randomized control trials on the effects of arts integration on students' memory of science content. We just are in the process of publishing a book chapter called From STEM to STEAM, looking at how the arts improve science and STEAM instruction. Yesterday, we submitted an NSF grant, National Science Foundation grant, to study creativity and how creativity can be measured within a science context through the arts. We're very passionate about studying the knowledge of neuro and cognitive sciences through the brain-targeted teaching model, how that changes or influences teacher practices, and as Dr. John Bull so well explained, also teacher efficacy beliefs. So those are some of them. There's another question that I can answer real quickly. That question comes from Jane Greenblatt, and she wants to know, can the credits earned for the certificate go toward the grad degree? And the answer is yes. That's what we discussed. So it's a Master of Science in Education, and students who take the certificate can apply those credits into the master's, and many do.
Our next question is also asking in regards to program, how big is your typical cohort size?
Dr. John Bull and I talked about that today. We actually have so many people who apply that are eligible that we have opened up a second cohort. So right now, I think I would probably answer that in an online format. One cohort would be somewhere between 17 and 22 students, roughly.
Yeah, and just so building off of that, we have a lot of people coming from a variety of different environments. We have about half of our applicants are coming from K-12 education, and so we tend to put that group into one cohort, and the other cohort, we tend to put the people that are coming from a variety of different professional backgrounds, so that they can so that it's more professionally aligned in the interactions.
There's a question here that I think I'm glad came up, and that's, can the grad certificate in mind, brain, and teaching help serve to prepare a student to apply to the online EDD Doctor of Education, mind, brain, and teaching specialization? Is coursework in the grad certificate transferable to the EDD program? And the answer is no. And the reason the answer is no, at least right now, is that the coursework is essentially mirrored in the doctoral program. However, it is calibrated to the doctoral level. So a student would be repeating. So what we ask students, if they complete the mind, brain, and teaching certificate, to choose one of our other doctoral specializations and to apply what you've learned in the MBT certificate within a different specialization. It could be technology, it could be leadership, and many have gone on to do that. We have a few more questions here.
Looks like, let's see, the next one. Is there an academic journal about brain-targeted teaching or learning science that you would suggest reading?
So the Mind, Brain, and Education Journal, I think, is something that would be of interest. There's a new journal, Trends in Neuroscience and Education, out. So those are two that I would say would be your go-to journals.
And again, we are running out of time. We do have time for one more question, and that question is, do you find that many students who double up in the courses work a full-time job as well?
I would say yes. So this is so generally the majority of our students have chosen to pursue the Master's of Science in Education degree, and what they're doing is they're taking one mind brain teaching certificate course, and they're also taking one other course per semester. So we haven't up until this point offered the option to take 2 MBT courses at the same time, but we have received a lot of questions about that from our current cohort, which is why we want to be responsive to that desire and need, and our new population that is continuing to grow. And the majority of our students are full-time professionals. Yes.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. John Bull and Dr. Hardiman. So at this point, we are no longer taking questions. Once again, thank you again for your interest in the Johns Hopkins School of Education. We look forward to hearing from you, and have a wonderful evening.